Let's wait for Harry. Okay, so say it in English. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Gabriel,
Pray for us.
Saint Paul.
Pray for us.
So good morning. I'll be giving the talk today. Preaching is going to be in PowerPoint, so that I hope you will not fall asleep. So the topic of this talk it's a bit broad. So I'll be covering important issues, and hopefully at the end of this talk, my prayer is that I make a bit of sense for everyone. As a time check, I have to finish before 11. So for people, if I'm close to 11, I have to tell me 5 minutes before 11, I have to make a hard stop. So the topic of today's talk is confronting today's challenges. So, and I wanted to start with an overview. In the last 30 years, the development in technology, communications, or even media has actually surpassed what man has acquired in 100 years. Today, we say that we are a globalized society. The term one world is so common. Being interconnected is the norm. Okay? It's quite easy to get in touch with people from the US using Zoom. You can call your loved one using your cell phone. Gone are the days, at least I will admit my age. When to call my mom in Saudi Arabia before, I'm from Pampanga, I had to go to the local telco in Angeles, request for a call to Saudi Arabia, and then wait for around 20 to 30 minutes before I can get in touch with my mom. Gone are those days. It's so easy to get connected right now. With the term convergence, one world is so common. So, perhaps the question which we need to answer nowadays is, does being interconnected as a world really help? Does it make us more human? Nowadays, when distance becomes a blur, when the great technology divide is no longer present, we also see that amidst these good benefits, we have the dimming of values. Sometimes, guys, we're not even sure that what is presented to us is truth or falsehood. The term fake news is so common. We're not even sure if the values that we learn in the internet, which we pass on to our family or friends, is even the right one. So it begs the question, does being interconnected make us more human? And that's the question I will try to answer in some areas in this talk. When we got the world, we have to keep in mind that the world was given to us. Okay? In our faith, we know that God created the world and gave it to man. It was a gift. But it's not a gift which we own for ourselves. We often hear that as a gift, we have the right and duty to pass it on to the others. So, the present is what we owe to the future. And we know very well that the future belongs to our children, to the young ones. What we do with the present is what we pass on as heritage to our future. So when we talk about the challenges that we face today, the core idea is that we are talking about some issues which we find in society now, which we try to address because they directly impact the future that we will hand over and leave to our children and to our young ones. And the issues are quite common. Okay? You now have problems on pornography. You see the young ones unfocused, or minsan the term is always distracted, not knowing what they're doing. Many people find ignorance to be a common thing. The concept of I, me, mine, okay? You only live once is quite common, which is a summary for the term or word selfishness. And then amidst all of these things, people are asking the question, why do I have to suffer? So the question of evil and suffering, okay, is quite common among the youth nowadays. They have so many questions which unfortunately sometimes we cannot understand. So these are, to my mind, what we call the transition issues. These are the challenges that we have to try to face as we deal with our friends, the people in our workplace, or our own families. You can be sure, okay, that the way we address these situations will have an impact, okay, on the future that we leave behind. It's like asking ourselves, what legacy do you want to leave behind for the young ones? If in our deathbed, we'll be asked what we'll be remembered for, then I think it would be good to say that we had tried to live a good life and correct the many wrongs. So in the next couple of slides, I'll try to talk about some of those issues. Okay? I'm not proposing to give the solutions, okay? But my intent is just to open your eyes a bit and to give you thoughts to ponder on. And hopefully, at the end of this talk, I'll give you some key takeaways. Repito, what's to again, tell me if it's last 2 minutes. Okay? So, first, let's talk about digital technology. So, internet, mobile, one connected world. Okay? This is the norm nowadays. We are one connected world without borders. This is the world where our children are growing up. It is a world wherein technology is moving at a breakneck pace. It is a world wherein information is easily given. I-Google mo lang, sabi nila. Diba? I-Google mo lang. You can get information. Okay? It is a world wherein you only need a mobile phone, which can be gotten cheaply to be interconnected with everyone. It's a world without borders. So how does the world look like? Well, I tried to prepare some figures for you guys. These are not mine, guys. These are in Google. Okay, so these are from Google. So public information. This is public information. Okay, I'm providing two figures. One is the figure of the world, and after that, I want to zoom in to our country, the Philippines. So, in terms of population, the world is 7.9 billion. The Philippines is roughly 111 million nowadays, based on 2020 census. Yeah? So, we're still okay. We're still above replacement rate. Okay? Now, first point, please look at the population which is using internet. This is the population which is currently online. On a worldwide level, 4.5 billion or 60% of the world is now online. By online means they are connected to each other, either through the internet or through mobile. In the Philippines, we are 76 million connected. which is roughly 69% of the entire population. Much higher than the global average. That's why when we talk about the Philippines, the byword is that the Pinoys are known to be the internet super users of the world. We spend more time in the internet than our peers. On a global average, everyone just spends 6 hours and 43 minutes online per day. In the Philippines, please take note, we're 9 hours and 45 minutes. 9 hours, 45 minutes. Please don't react. After this, you might go home and start disconnecting the phones of your children. This is just for you to know. And as I said, this is from Google. Okay? This is public information. Let's talk about social media. Meaning, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The population using social media right now is 3.9 billion. That's roughly 50% of the world's population. Look at the Philippines, 92 million. That is 84%. 84% of the Philippine population is into social media. That's why we're known as the social media capital of the world. And if you think about it, the amount of time that we spend on social media is 2 times more than the global average. Okay? While all other countries spend 2 hours, 24 minutes on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or whatever, in the Philippines, we spend 4 hours per day. It's quite big. Okay? So, and now, okay, that information is something that we have to analyze and ponder. With the proliferation of technology, with people going online, with the amount of information on hand, we won't be surprised that quite common, this is the normal scenario. I'm sure you've seen this quite often, even at home. And I'll share in my own family. We have a rule, and this is just to share with you, since we're all brothers and friends. In the dining room, no cell phone. When we eat, my sister says, no cell phone, cell phones out. Not even television. Okay? So we don't have a TV in the dining room. When we eat, we're in the dining room, we talk, we chat, we pull each other's leg. But no cell phone, not even a television. Unfortunately, this is too familiar now. This is already familiar nowadays. Sometimes when we go to restaurants, right? All of us notice this quite often. And people fall into this mindset of being busy with their own things, using the cell phone or the net instead of being connected with each other, simply because they want instant gratification. I want it now. Okay? Everything is just a click away. This is so common nowadays. Everything is just a click away. Okay? Go to Facebook, go to Instagram, text your friend, Viber, Messenger. Okay? So it's so common. The problem with this is that we tend to be connected digitally, but humanly, we're disconnected. And we know very well that as persons, man is a social being. We need to connect to each other in order to make sense of our lives. So, what we're getting right now, the proliferation of technology or the internet or the phone might help us digitally, but it might not help us humanly. Okay? Because you connect with someone not through text. Okay? You connect with someone not through a Facebook post, hi, I like it, I went to this restaurant. You connect with your friend by talking to him. by spending time with them. That's why this is the problem nowadays. And quite often among the young, what I've seen is that the concept of instant gratification has led to many problems. And we have to be fair, guys. Some of these problems are not because of the fault of the young. It's also partly because our fault. Because we haven't trained them on the use of these tools well. Basically, the main problem with mobile technology now is that without proper guidance, we tend to lose control. In short, we tend to be intemperate, okay, with the use of these tools. And with intemperance, what happens is that the person actually loses his inner freedom. In inner freedom is the capacity to choose what is right or wrong. Okay? When a person practices temperance, means you're in control. You can dominate yourself. In a word, guys, you can say no. Temperance is a virtue. In the end, it tells us no. We say no to the wrong things so that we can affirm and say yes to the right things. Temperance, in its basic form, is self-mastery. And from that alone, we see the importance of temperance. So, when a person is temperate, he has self-control. He is able to order the use of instruments and direct everything towards what is truly good. Temperance also leads us to use objects correctly, giving them their true value. Ito yung kulang ngayon. So, this is the problem. The problem is not about the instrument. The problem, unfortunately, lies in education. And where does it start? Well, this is the truth. Educating in the use of in the use of new technologies is actually about educating in the family. And this applies not only for the young, it also applies for the adolescent, it also applies to us. The use of new technologies, their proper use, okay, knowing what to buy, what not to buy, or when to correctly use them, is first and foremost controlled within the family. And in the family, who has the major responsibility? Well, definitely the parents. Okay? So the primary formators in the use of new technologies have to be the parents. It's not the yaya. It's not the yaya. You have to be clear. I know many of you here, you're well off. You might have a yaya or two. Guys, we do not leave the formation of our kids, especially the first years, to the yaya. They might learn the wrong things. Well, I attended the talk of Chito yesterday, and I believe he gave more than enough examples, right, on how the parents have to be involved in the formation of their kids during the early years. So the formation in the family rests on the parents. And that means, whether we like it or not, we have to train ourselves for this. We have to try to know, or at least understand, what the new technologies are. Okay? We have to know what our children are involved with. I have a nephew, which I'm close with. Okay? And among boys, sometimes I chat with him. Okay? So, catch up. And once I asked a question, told him, Renz, don't you have Facebook? Because I know all of these This guy is Generation Z. Imposible walang Facebook to. Don't you have Facebook? Don't you post? Because I know he normally posts. And you know what he told me? Ito among us. I don't use Facebook because Mama sees it. I have another account. See? The young ones, they know what to post and what not to post. And they also know what their parents are looking at. So they try to see, this is mine, this is for the public. So the idea is that all of us in this room, whether married or not, single or husband, have to understand, at least get an idea of what the new technologies are. And we have to train the young, our kids and adolescents, on the use of these technologies. You don't need to be technologists to do this. Huh? You don't need to be experts in Google, WhatsApp. If there's a show of hands here, I will say I'm not an expert in those. But in training our kids, quite often, the training is about the technology. The training is about the right use of the instruments, which is common to any formation. Moderation, temperance, living order, when you have to use it, being generous with your time. This is where the formation has to come. And the formation has to be given in an environment of freedom. We have to learn how to be our friend, our children's best friend. We have to be their friends. So this has to be the environment. Okay? By being their friend, we are able to train our children in freedom, so that they get to understand the whys of things. Why they have to be responsible, why they have to be temperate, why they cannot just have the latest gadget simply because his friend has it. So, it's a training in freedom, which parents have to learn. Next one, ito, pornography. Okay, so, of course, we're all mature here. Okay? To start with, before I transferred to Cebu, I was also staying in a center in Makati, in Alabang. And then, one of the residents staying there was also a teacher in a school called Southridge. One night, while we were having a tea get-together, this teacher, who I'm very close with, told me something. You know, Jess, in school, the kids nowadays, they don't understand or they don't know what X-rated means. You all know what X-rated is, right? We grew up in that environment. But, okay, he said, in school, in Southridge, you'll be surprised when you talk that you can't watch that film is X-rated. The kids will say, "What's that, sir?" Gone are the days when you cannot watch a film because it's X-rated. Because, pornography is now easily accessible on the net. Okay? These are the statistics from, again, on the internet, on pornography. If you look at it, the basic idea is that only 4%, at least by 2015, only 4% of the sites in the internet are known to be adult websites. Okay? And then you normally access this using your internet or desktop or your phone. Please take note, those who access the adult websites with the phone comprises 20% of the market. It might look small, but look at the figure below. 87% of male, this is based in the US, okay? So don't get alarmed. These are US statistics. 87 of males in the US access adult websites once a week. The women, I think around 23%. 87%. That's why pornography is so widespread nowadays. Okay? There's one guy who said, you know why pornography is so easy? Because it is easily accessible, cheap, and then you can easily hide. Okay? The problem with pornography nowadays is that it has become an addiction. It's present. Many families, even Christian families, say that pornography is a problem in the workplace and at home. Both, guys, both. It's an issue not only at home, but also in the workplace, especially among women. Okay? So it's good for you to know this. Huh? Women also having problems in this. It's not only men. So what do we do? Close our eyes? Huh? Is this enough? Just to close our eyes when we see an immoral sight? Or when we say na turn as a blind eye or deaf ear to the reality, as if it does not exist? Of course not. Pornography is a reality which is already present. And I think the solution to this is not to run away, but rather we have to face it. The Founder Focus Day said that, sorry, it's not the founder. It's the Founder Focus Day. Said that there is a need for a crusade of manliness and purity to counteract and undo the savage work of those who think that man is a beast. And that crusade is a matter for you. So this is a battle for purity. This is a crusade, which, as the Founder Focus Day said, it is something that we have to wage war on. So, meaning, matters of purity is the main tool of the devil in order to pull us down. And right now, given the proliferation of technology, the lines of pornography are becoming dimmer and dimmer. Okay? If we are not conscious of it, magkakagulo tayo. So maybe you might ask me now, so we have to fight. So paano ba? How do you fight in this area? I think this is the crucial question. Yeah? We have to teach people that they have to live clean lives. Okay? In Catholic teaching, this is called holy purity. In marriage, guys, you call this continence or chastity. Okay? But the idea is, it's purity. We have to live pure clean lives. So, how do we teach the young nowadays on how to live purity correctly? Paano ba? And I think, to answer this, ayaw mo gumalaw. Hold on, ha? Hold on. Yeah, sorry. Okay? And I think to understand this correctly, you and I need to go to the basic teaching of our Lord. I'd ask you to go back to the Sermon at the Mount. Okay? You know this, right? The Sermon of the Mount. Our Lord calls everyone to Himself. And then, in the sermon, He gives the Beatitudes. But apart from that, He also teaches the greatest commandment. The greatest commandment is you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. Please take note, I underline the word heart. And our Lord didn't say you shall love the Lord your God with your body. No. God starts by telling us, give me your heart. And I think this is what we tend to misunderstand and forget. That to love God is a matter of giving one's heart. So, talking about the virtue of purity is actually about knowing how to love correctly. It's not about a strategy, it's not about willpower. And to start on this path, you have to live a life of virtue. Okay? So this is a sample of a life of virtue. Please take note that you always start with love of God. Okay? When you have love of God, you acquire cleanliness of heart, you have clarity of mind, and then the capacity to give oneself to the other increases. That is always the path of virtue. And guys, I think you know the opposite, right? The path of vice. This is the path of vice. The exact opposite. When you reject God, you basically grow in disorder, and then sensuality and purity comes in. And because of that, you do not grow in capacity to love God. Maybe just to end on this point on purity, I wanted to highlight a very practical point. Living purity or chastity makes one attractive. Not only the human level, but also on a societal level. Society appreciates people who live this virtue because they end up to be men of character and worth. Someone who struggles to live purity very well is someone capable of great dreams, high aspirations. And we've seen this. Normally, it's in the most clean-cut and pure of men that you find those who are strong, men of worth. And of course, the opposite is true. It's in the pure, the sensual, that you normally find people of little worth. Okay? So, next, throwaway culture. Oh no, I have 20 minutes na lang. Whether you like it or not, we are now living in a world of opposites. You have the presence of the rich and the poor, advantaged and disadvantaged. And whether we like it or not, sometimes what we notice nowadays is that we are living or growing in a world of global indifference. Meaning, what matters is what is useful for many. The concept of not needed or no longer useful is becoming prevalent in society. That's why the elderly, the sick, the dying, the poor, and the unborn are seen to be of relative value. Think about it. Throwaway culture. Things which are not useful to us can be disposed with. That's why, what's the tendency, guys? The tendency is that we tend to be carefree. We live a carefree existence. On the one hand, we splurge and waste so many food. And you have children dying, or children without food to eat. And then you have the elderly being neglected. Don't worry, in the Philippines that hasn't happened yet, huh? But in many countries, the elderly are being neglected. We have forgotten that in the end, we are not isolated from each other. As I had said, what we have is a shared inheritance. I mean, the world is ours, and it's our common home. And therefore, we have to care for it. When our Lord gave dominion to man in creation, what He meant was this. When God said, till the earth and have dominion on it, what He wanted was basically to cultivate and care for it, not to dominate or destroy it. And that's why nowadays, when we have a lot of problems on the environment or culture, the Holy Father wanted us to understand this again. Okay? That we have a common responsibility. Okay? Remember the encyclical Laudato Si? It's about this one. Okay? And the COVID-19 has brought this to the fore. Okay? That at the end of it all of us are vulnerable. Okay? So all of the technologies that we have couldn't save us from COVID. There was a doctor in my house, sabi niya, it just took a small virus to put the world to halt. And at that time, all of our strength, all of our money, all of our technology were useless. We had to depend on each other in order to survive. And the frontliners were the ones that helped us. So, in a world where we are wasting, the call for us is to care. Call for the marginalized. Go back to the peripheries. So, and then, this one, lost interior recollection. May I ask yourself, is this common to many of you nowadays? There's a lot of information being thrown at us, but we cannot reflect. It's so common. In fact, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, has asked people to pray so that we will not be overwhelmed by the noise around us and rediscover the value of silence. Because it's only in silence that God can talk to us. So amidst all of this noise, guys, the solution is rediscover silence. We have to rediscover the value of silence. But you can only do this if you learn to guard your senses. You can only have interior quiet amidst exterior noise if you know how to control and guard your senses. That's why we have to follow this very simple advice. That in making choices about things that we need or not need, we must know the difference between wanting something, which is simply out of preference, needing something, which is indispensable, and know the use of something. To want, to need, to use. So these are things that we have to understand. Next to the last point, suffering. This is a bit hard. Whenever I talk with my friends, I often experience this question. Why must I suffer? Or why do I suffer? And I have to admit, I don't have the answers. Because suffering itself is a mystery. Our faith partly gives us the reason. We know the story, right? The apple, original sin. And that kind of accounts for one of the reasons why. But in the end, all sufferings or evil in this world stems from two things, basically. One, the consequence of sin. And second, misguided use of freedom. This causes suffering for many people. But still, it doesn't answer everything. Because quite often, even the innocent or the good man has to suffer without knowing why. And quite often, guys, we only have to look at the cross. Because it's only in the cross that you can have at least the reason why one suffers. Because on the cross, God had to suffer and convert that suffering into redemptive love. Still, mahirap sagutin minsan. But that's the reason why I think our Lord Jesus Christ decided to accept the cross. Because it is only the cross that you can give meaning to the paradox of suffering. Also, I wanted to say that even if we have to suffer many things in life, it is not the end. Guys, in life, always realize that God always has the trump card. You know the trump card, di ba? The last card, di ba? The one has due advantage. God always has the last say in life. So even if we suffer many things, always keep in mind that our Lord always has the last say. And all our sufferings are not useless. So, lastly, ignorance. Okay? The problem nowadays is that there's so much information, okay, but a poverty of knowledge. Okay? Do you know this picture? That's from Asterix and Obelix. You know this very well, you're very familiar with this. These are the Roman soldiers in that comics. I took this because when looking at ignorance, we have to, I wanted to get the concept of soldiers. Okay? Our baptism calls us to be witnesses for Christ, to be soldiers for Christ. The question is the faith enough? And it's not. Because having the faith by itself is not to keep you strong. It needs to be supported by truth. Okay? That's why the way to combat ignorance is through formation. Okay? But this formation has to be done in a spirit of freedom. This is how you combat ignorance. Okay? So it's done in a sporting spirit. Okay? So formation is the key to combat ignorance. And even if you have just a few people who are formed, these few people will be your creative minority who can change the future. It just takes a few people, well-formed people, with the right formation to do a lot of good in society. This is your creative minority. And then just to end, okay, so last 3 minutes. Okay? Key takeaways, okay, from this talk. First one, okay, we need formation. Formation is essential. Because I said faith on itself is not enough. It's superficial. Faith and truth always go hand in hand. And you need those two in order to combat ignorance. You also need it in order to form your families very well. Second, we know that pornography is present all around, but we cannot run away from it. So what do? We try to create a clean environment around us. We try to create a pool of clean water so that people can live and appreciate the beauty of, as they say, a clean life. Okay? So remember this phrase of Dory, just keep swimming. Okay? Against the tide, just keep swimming. Create a clean of pool water around us. Third, education starts in the family. So for those who are fathers, about to be fathers, or who are titos, keep in mind, education starts always in the family. Fourth, we are called to become good Samaritans. The Holy Father had extended his invitation in his latest encyclical, Fratelli Tutti. In that encyclical, Pope Francis said that, the real value of man consists in giving himself in service to the others. So, in today's challenges, we have to learn to become a good Samaritan to the people around us. And then lastly, cultivate your prayer life. Piety. So, meaning we need to be men of interior life. So that we can always rely on God. So grace is important. the help of Our Lady is important in the struggle to face these challenges. And lastly, this is my last slide. Okay. Just a final thought. Okay. There are many challenges nowadays. And if you notice, in that carton of Asterix and Obelix, I inserted the word, the battle is not short. The battle to live, to improve society, to face the challenges, will be for the long haul. That's why it's important for us to strengthen our resolve and fight, because we know what's truly important. It might go beyond our lifetime, and I'm almost sure the battle to do what is right will go beyond our lifetime. But it doesn't mean we have to give up. No, our vision is that of a bright future for ourselves, for our family, for our children. That's why we need to fight. Okay? So, I end by this quote from St. Paul to Corinthians when he said, "Be watchful and stand firm in the faith. Act like men, be strong." This is what God expects from all of us. Amidst the challenges in society, we are asked to strengthen our resolve. So that's it. Daghang salamat. Thank you for listening.